just want to call out, it is like just after 6:30 a.m. and I am already sweating. That's because the humidity is like 90+%. And even though the sun ain't out, it's hot. It feels like if you put a sauna in like an oven. So y'all already seen the good side of gardening. I brought y'all along as I started my spring garden, as we've harvested. But let's be real. Gardening is not all rainbows and sunshine. Additionally, living in a subtropical climate like me, I'm on the Texas Gulf Coast in the Houston metro area, zone 9A, produces its own set of challenges. And so I'm gonna bring y'all along and just show y'all what's going on in the garden, everything from like weeds, pests, disease. And let's be clear, this is a no judgment zone, okay? So I'm also gonna bring y'all along as I set up my summer garden. I'm gonna remove some of my spring crops and replace some with crops that are best suited for the Texas sun. So let's go. This used to be my squash and green bean bed. However, with all the rain we had, I haven't been able to get out here and really tend to these plants. And as you can see, the nutsedge has taken over. And those little twigs in the back are what once were my squash plants. And so with me not being able to get out here and tend to them, the squash vine borers took over. So normally I would come out daily, inspect the vines. There's an example of an opening there where they bored their way inside and ate my plants from the inside out. But you know what did make it? My oregano, as well as my stevia. So all the herbs made it. This is the lettuce that's just since gone to seed. And then our spring onions survived. My green beans are also alive. However, I think I just might pull everything up outside of the herbs, like the perennials in this bed. Because I have so much of it, I thought I'd share with you all why nutsedge is such an annoying and difficult weed to get rid of, as opposed to your more decent weeds that, you know, they grow a root, you pull them up from the root, and they're less likely to come back. Our friend nutsedge here actually grows these runners here, or rhizomes. Then along these runners, it will then produce more nutsedge. So this, you can see, is connected on the same runner here. Let's say you pick this one, you break it apart. This one here still has this anchor or runner that's already in the ground and probably connected at 4 or 5 different points. And sometimes when you pull it and if you don't get it all up, it can actually encourage more growth. So because we had so many pest issues in this bed that I'm going to be planting my summer crops in, we had squash vine borer, squash bugs, leaf-footed bugs. There's likely eggs and larvae still in the soil. And so to help kind of mitigate them coming back, I'm actually going to run the garden torch over this particular bed. This will also sterilize weed seeds or other like weeds that are near the surface. Like, it won't get them all, but it will definitely help slow down like the resurgence of them. But disclaimer, use your common sense, which I realize nowadays common sense ain't so common, but make sure that if you're going to do this, you are first checking with your local area, your local laws, to make sure this is actually something you can do. And it is best to either do this in the morning where there's still dew on the ground and the area you're going to be torching is still moist, or you can do what I'm going to be doing because it's no longer morning time. I'm actually going to be watering the area first before applying the torch, because dry surface, dry particulate, and flames are a no-no. So if you're somewhere that is prone to like forest fires, like, do your due diligence, do your homework, be smart. I am also going to keep the hose by me in case things pop off as I am using the garden torch. good trellising system. And the problem that I'm having with a lot of the ones that are in my raised beds is that because of all the windstorms and just like thunderstorms we've been having, a lot of them have just like started to like lean, and some have even fallen over. And so I'm trying out a new system from Vego that is compatible with their raised beds that actually affix to the raised bed and actually provide like an anchor, and it's supposed to be a lot sturdier. So I'm gonna assemble that. I'm super excited. I'm gonna be putting it in the bed that I'm planting my Kajari melons on, because those get really heavy, and so I want something sturdy. It's the next day because after all the work I did yesterday, I was like done. I was tapped out. And so as you can see, I have assembled the trellis. Overall assembly, like most of the Vego products I've gotten, are pretty straightforward. They always include like instructional videos, which is helpful. Because the trellis is affixed to the raised bed, which is I think what makes it the most sturdy and one of the biggest selling factors, it was also one of the biggest pain points when I was installing. This is best installed while your raised bed is empty. And obviously none of mine are empty. And so if you are using this and you actually have soil in it, it's okay, you can make it work, but you will have to kind of dig away some of the soil so that you are able to attach the connector, which is what I had to do, which overall wasn't a big deal. It was a little annoying if it was over, I needed to put it where there was like an existing plant. Overall, I'd give it like a 10 out of 10. Like, I think this is going to hold up very well over time. One thing that I know probably a lot of people don't care about or maybe don't notice, but I can appreciate the little baggies, you know, with the like parts. It wasn't typically, they're plastic. It was made of this like cloth, which is, I'm guessing, like biodegradable and for sure more eco-friendly. And I really appreciated that because I hate like just plastic, like extra unnecessary plastic. So kudos to Vego for doing that. I do have a code from Vego that I will link below, as well as link below where you can get this trellis. They are different configurations based on the size raised bed that you have or that you're thinking of getting. But again, I'll link it all below. This is an area of my garden that gives me anxiety. It has become overgrown with weeds with all the rain and the warmer weather. And there's actually blackberry vines back there that have become overtaken. And so I really want to get this cleaned up. I love that sound. Okay, so majority of the rest of this are it's actually like my blackberry vine that has spread. It seems to really like this spot. Like, look how green and healthy these plants look. So I'm gonna figure out how to set up a trellising system over here and just keep it over here. But I have gotten majority of the weeds out. There's still some over there in the corner. And this is the humongous pile of weeds I have pulled up, but this is not going to go to waste. I'm going to actually turn this into a liquid fertilizer. So back to the earth it shall go, and I will make sure to show you all how I get that set up. This is an example of how I set up my homemade weed fertilizer from a previous batch. I have these containers all throughout my garden. It's pretty simple. All you're going to do is you're going to fill it up with your weeds of choice. Whatever container you use, you do want to make sure it has a lid. And then I top it off with a little bit of compost just to give it an extra boost. And then I fill with rainwater. Rainwater is best. However, if you don't have it, you can use city water. You just want to dechlorinate it. And you can do that by letting it sit out for at least 24 hours because chlorine's job is to stop microbial and bacterial growth, which is what we actually want to be growing during this process. And then I just cover and let sit, the longer the better, but at least a few weeks. This is an example of a finished batch that I've clearly been using, and I ain't gonna lie to y'all, this is funky. But you know what? Plants can't smell, and I'll usually let this stew for a couple of months before using, and I will dilute in usually a ratio of 1 to 10 before applying to my plants. And as it runs low, I'll replenish with weeds, food scraps, rainwater, compost, or native soil. So this is proof that squash bugs don't only just eat squash, they're also kind of destroying my tomatoes as well. Unfortunately, I had wrapped these up for birds, and instead of the birds killing these off, it was squash bugs. They have scattered around. There's one right there, so I am going to get rid of these and toss these off and take the L. There's one there that has been decimated from squash bugs on the plant. You can see because of all the rain too, some of my tomatoes are starting to get some disease on here, and so I'm gonna trim these off. But all in all, this is just the way it is sometimes, you know. So I came over here to succession sow my sweet potatoes to extend my season. These here are from sweet potato vines that actually overwintered. This is the same bed I planted them in last year. There were a few that actually just grew up in this bed, and then there were some that had taken root. Oh, and actually there's one flowering there. I don't think I've ever had seen the bloom of any sweet potato I've grown. It's so pretty. But as you can see, it came from this vine here that rooted somehow from my crop last year. And I just took cuttings from this and rooted them out in some water. With sweet potatoes, wherever the node, and this is a node and you can already see it happening, wherever it touches the ground, it will actually root. I was at my nursery earlier this week and they had sweet potato slips. And so I bought different varieties. However, now I don't know where I'm going to plant them. I only planted on one half of this bed. However, you can see that the vines have already taken over, but I might try to squeeze maybe two more vines in this bed, and the other ones I'll just plant in containers. Y'all, look at our Roselle hibiscus. Like, y'all were with me when I planted this. This is one of the few plants like that the hotter it gets, the more it puts out. Like, and this is it in its infancy. This plant gets quite large. Last year, it got 10 feet wide, almost 6 feet tall. And so it is looking great. This will be ready in the fall. Usually September, October is when I usually harvest my Roselle hibiscus. So that will be a whole deal. Like, I'll bring it along as I like make jam and all that stuff with that. And look at my pineapple. This is pineapple I got just from cutting like the pineapple tops I get from the grocery store, and it is thriving in the heat. Here's a weed. And it, again, is one I feel like the warmer it's gotten, the like larger it has gotten. Now I do have it kind of under the canopy of like another pot here and then the Roselle hibiscus, because usually like tropicals like this, even though they like the heat and humidity, they don't like direct sun. And so it looks to be doing fabulous. So looking forward to getting a pineapple. And look, my cattle panel melons are starting to fruit. I think I have like two, maybe three types of melons along here. I think that one's the Kajari, which I also just planted in my raised bed. I think this is a sugar baby, and I'm not sure what the other one is. And then undertwine, this is a bit of an experiment because people say that ginger does not grow well in like clay soil. And so I'm like, I had a bunch of extra ginger, and so I'm just testing growing it in my native soil, which is clay, to see what we get. I didn't expect it to sprout, but it has, so we'll see what comes of that. But overall, excited. Oh, look what I see. And they're mating. We got to snip that in the bud. My spray bottle was running out, so I think I only managed to get one of them, but it just fell. It's dead. It's dead. Now I'm just sort of training the melon up this cattle panel so that it stays off the ground as much as possible, at least. And y'all, something else I noticed, my apples. I have apples on them for the first time ever. This is a Dayton. This is the variety, and that's the rootstock is on. I planted all three of my apples probably about 18 months ago. Admittedly, our climate isn't like best known for growing apples, but I picked varieties that were heat tolerant, tolerant to humidity, and disease resistant. And these are what I have. This is the only one over here that has apples on them. I'm gonna actually net those up. Oh my gosh, there's more here, y'all. Look. Oh my gosh. They're everywhere. I should probably thin these out, y'all. Like, can y'all see that? And there? Y'all, this is actually loaded. I just thought it was these two here, but they're all throughout this tree. I'm really excited. I might actually, there's another one over there. Try not to be greedy and thin some of these out. I read that that's what you're supposed to do with apple trees. But I am ecstatic. I love apples. This is the Dayton. This one over here is a Gallerina, which is a hybrid or improved version of a Gala apple that's supposed to be more heat and disease tolerant. And that is the variety as well as the rootstock. And these actually, from the moment I put them in the ground, like they took off and grew in height fairly quickly. And then this one here is the Liberty. And as you can see, there's not really much going on here, but this baby here, which is surprising because it doesn't have many leaves. There's like leaves at the bottom that I need to prune, but it's loaded with fruit. This one's loaded with leaves and no fruit. So I will probably come out and thin some of these out as well as net some of these so that the birds, because the birds are not going to be fighting if they come out and eat all my apples. But cutest thing ever. So this is my Greenstalk. Everything's looking lush. It's mostly strawberries and I have a variety of herbs in here. But I posted a video, a short, and showed you all this little thing here, which is an egg. I'm guessing it's from one of the mockingbirds because that is who has taken residence in my garden. And I'll let y'all know I was just going to let it be. I haven't touched it or done anything. I'm just going to let nature, but just thought I would share an update. I don't know usually how long it takes for like an egg to hatch. I should probably look that up. I went on to explain like my reasoning behind just leaving it be is because even though birds are annoying, like they have wreaked havoc in my garden this season, they are also like they have really come through for me this year in like keeping pests down. So they have paid their way. And as you can see, they also plant things for me randomly throughout my garden. Those are a bunch of tomatoes that I need to pull up because I don't want them growing here. And other just random stuff that's popping up everywhere courtesy of the birds. So as you have seen today, clearly gardening is not all rainbows and sunshine. You have the good, but you also have the bad and the ugly. And I think sometimes when people are out of the good phase of gardening and they come across the bad and the ugly, that's where a lot of people can get discouraged. But I think it's important to note that's part of the process. Like every gardener, literally everyone, has to go through that. And it doesn't make you a bad gardener. At the end of the day, y'all, it's just gardening. We're just trying to eat. And even though it can be hard, like for me, it is really difficult for me to come outside every day in the blazing Texas heat and humidity. But it's something that, once I'm out here, I love doing it. I'm in it. It's just kind of mentally. So it's almost like changing your kind of mindset. I have the mindset like, this is something that for me gives me joy. I think about the benefit or the outcome for me putting the input that I'm putting in, and that helps me stay motivated. I also get to share my journey with you all, so you all also are a means of motivation to me. And so for that, I am incredibly grateful to you for all your support. For those of you all who have subscribed and like and comment, like I read all the comments. I try to respond to as many as possible. I never thought, like, when I started my YouTube journey back in January, that I would be where I am today. Like, my goal for this year was just to get to 5,000 subscribers, and I've already exceeded that, and I owe that all to you all. So thank you so, so much. And here's to 5,000 more. And as I walk by this tomato that has fallen over yet again, I'm gonna have to figure out a whole new situation for this one. But y'all already know the deal. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And remember, every black thumb ripens to green, and it all just starts with a seed.